we are going to be talking all about the hidden senses and how those hidden senses affect your child. Hey everybody, I'm Ash the OT, and welcome to my channel where I provide parents tools and strategies in order to help the little ones in your lives to learn, grow, and make progress. Thank you for tuning in to video number 2 of my sensory series. And just in case you missed the first video, which is all about sensory processing disorder, make sure you check that one out as well, but after you watch this one, of course. First off, it's important to know that children understand their world through their senses. The way they act, the way they behave, the habits they develop, that is all attributed to the information that they learn from their senses. And depending on how well their brains and their bodies are able to process all of this information and make sense of it, that will determine how well your child is able to socially participate. It will affect their academic success. It will affect the way that they participate in their activities of daily living. And it will also affect your family's quality of life. So let's do a recap on the 5 senses that most of us are already familiar with, right? So we have our touch, we have our taste, we have our smell, we have our sight, and we have our hearing. Those are the 5 senses that most of us grew up knowing and learning. And those are what is known as the external or the far senses, because that information is coming from afar or coming from our environment. But there are also 3 additional senses that many of us don't know about or are not aware of. Those are known as our internal senses or our near senses. And those are the vestibular sense, the proprioceptive sense, and the interoception sense. That is a mouthful. Let's start with the vestibular sense. Our vestibular sense or vestibular system is located within our inner ear. And we have fluid in our inner ear that moves across hair cells in our inner ear. So every time we move our heads, we are adjusting our position in space. And when we are moving our head, the fluid that's in our ear is also moving as well. And all of this is working together to help us with things such as balance. It's helping us with things such as coordination between our head and our eyes and our body. It's helping us with auditory and language perception, and it's also helping us with visual perception. Because the vestibular sense is very foundational and is connected and correlated to so many other sensory systems in the body, it can definitely affect your child in many ways if they have an issue with their vestibular sense. So for example, if there's kids out there that you know that have multiple ear infections or have had a history of multiple ear infections, it is not uncommon for those same children to have some language delays or some speech difficulties because the vestibular sense and the auditory sense are very closely connected. And so if there's inflammation in the ear where that fluid is supposed to be freely moving, but because of the inflammation, it's affecting the way that your child is processing sounds and processing language, that is where sometimes a kid that has ear infections may also have some issues with their speech and language. The vestibular system can also affect our safety. It can affect our spatial awareness. And by that, I mean, if you are writing your letters or writing different words, making sentences, even if your child is doing math, sometimes if their vestibular system is not intact, that spatial awareness is off, and that could affect the outcomes for their academics. Also, it can affect the difference and the discrimination between the right and left sides of your child's body. There are also kids who are very fearful of movement. They don't like to be picked up and held high in the air. They don't like swinging. They don't like sliding. They'd rather just sit and do an activity in one position. There's some kids or younger toddlers or babies who cannot tolerate being laid down for a diaper change because their head tilting back is very aversive to them. So diaper changes can be very difficult for kids who have vestibular system issues. Also, there's some kids who are kind of slouching and they always kind of have to prop themselves instead of being able to just sit upright. This can also be an indicator that your child may have an issue with their vestibular system. So what are some ways that you all can help your child to activate their vestibular systems? Well, there are tons. So some things can be going outside. If you have access to like a playground, you can have them to go on the swing, go on the slide. But if you don't have access to that, you can simply have them lay down in a blanket in your house and have two adults pick up the other ends and gently rock them in the blanket. You can have them to bounce on like a yoga ball or a therapy ball, or even roll across the ball on their bellies. You can also have your child to sit in a rocking chair. And if you don't have a rocking chair, plop them on your lap and you can still kind of create that rocking motion for them. You can also have your child to practice rolling. You can have your child to do some jumping up and down on the floor or on the trampoline. You can also practice having your child to engage with head shake games. So shaking their head yes, shaking their head no. Those are still simple and easy ways to work on that vestibular sense. So moving on to hidden sense number 2, we have our proprioceptive sense. Now this sense detects information from our muscles and our joints, and this gives us information and feedback about our body position, as well as how much force is being used when we are engaging in an activity. So our proprioceptive sense is responsible for letting us know, hey, am I sitting right now? Or am I standing up right now? Or am I laying down right now? Where is my body? It also gives us information on how much force we should be using when we are engaging with an activity. So for example, how much force does it take for me to pick up this pen? And not only just for holding the pen, but when I start to write, how much pressure do I need to use in order to write my name so that I'm not writing so hard where I'm literally ripping a hole in the paper, or I'm not writing so soft where I can barely even see what I just wrote. Or if I wanted to pick up this water bottle, how much force do I need to be able to use to hold this water bottle and not even hold it, but bring it to my mouth and drink out of it without spilling it, squeezing it so hard that if I had to top off, the water would splurt out, or holding it so soft that I just drop it. So if your child has an issue with their proprioceptive sense, it may look as if they are clumsy. It may look as if they easily lose balance. These could be the kids that are constantly bumping into things to kind of give their body more feedback. Also, kids could be affected by not knowing how much pressure and how much force to use when playing with their toys. Even sometimes kids that are walking and you hear their feet like literally slapping against the ground, it's not because they're doing it to be annoying. Well, not typically, some kids will, but typically because they are trying to give themselves some type of feedback. And by walking hard and hearing that slapping noise on the floor, that's kind of telling them where their body is in relation to the ground. Sometimes kids who have issues with their proprioceptive system can also be those kids who seem to be a bit sensory seeking. So those are the kids who are constantly moving, that can't sit still, they're bouncing off the walls, they're bumping into people. So those are more indicators for that. So what are some activities that you all can do to try to help your children to stimulate their proprioceptive system, or to help your child understand where their body is and get that appropriate information from their muscles and joints? Well, my favorite thing is to do heavy work, and heavy work can be a whole nother video, but just for simplification reasons for this video, heavy work is basically anything that your child does that requires them to engage their muscles and their joints. Usually these are things that require your child to carry something heavy, push something heavy, such as a loaded laundry basket, pull something heavy. These are things such as wiping the table, stacking chairs, doing animal walks around the house. You can have your child to pour things from one container to another container. You can have your child to engage in resistive work with their hands, such as Play-Doh or clay, or anything that requires a lot of resistance. You can also have your child to engage in body stretches, such as stretching their arms, stretching their legs, stretching side to side. You can also help your child by providing them with joint compressions, or what I like to call squeezes or squishies for my little ones that I work with. So a joint compression is basically finding an area on the body, whether it's the wrist or the elbow or the shoulder or the knee or the ankle. It's basically anywhere in the body that has like a crease that can bend. That is where you can do the joint compression. So to do the joint compression, you basically would just squeeze and then kind of provide like short compressions. You could do it at the elbow, which is a little harder for me to show on myself, but those are some examples of how you can help your child to become more aware of where their body is and how their body works. So the third hidden sense is interoception. So this is the ability of the body to read the internal signals. So for example, sleeping is one of them. Sleeping is one internal signal that your child will need to register in order to sleep well, right? So if your child is not sleeping well, if they're having a hard time detecting when they are sleepy, which is a big one because there's many kids out there who will fight their sleep to death because they want to stay awake, but they don't understand that, oh, I'm tired, I need to go to bed. Or those kids, you know, that are overly sleepy and they just need a nap because they're crazy, right? Those are kids sometimes that they're not processing internally that it's time for sleep. It could even be kids who have a hard time staying asleep throughout the night. Another form of interoception that's important for your child to be able to understand is appetite. Can they register when they're hungry? Can they register when they're thirsty? Another form of interoception is temperature recognition. Does your child understand when they are hot versus cold? Can they understand temperature as far as weather? So for example, you may see sometimes people being outside, not even just kids, but even adults going outside and it's freezing outside, but you see them wearing shorts and flip-flops. Or it could be the opposite, where in the summer it's burning hot, but you see them wearing long sleeves and jeans. Those people sometimes have a hard time understanding their body's internal temperature regulation. Another form of interoception could be illness recognition. Does your child understand when they don't feel so well? And if they do understand that they have pain or don't feel so well, are they able to tell you where that pain is coming from? Some kids may not understand that, oh, I have a belly ache, but they may tell you, oh, my elbow hurts, or I hit my leg, but they really hit their elbow. So being able to understand those pain receptors is another form of interoception. Toileting, that is another huge one, especially for child development. Being able to understand your body's internal signals that I gotta go to the bathroom, right? Now that's one thing if kids know they have to go to the bathroom, but they're so busy playing that they just don't want to. So you see them doing like the little potty dance. That's one thing. But I'm talking about the kids who just have no idea how to read those internal signals. And so by the time they recognize that they have to go, it's too late already. Or they recognize it so late that if you don't go to the bathroom right away, there's an accident. And last but not least, there is emotional regulation. So does your child recognize that they have a variety of different emotions? And if they do recognize that, are they able to understand how to manage all of those emotions? So all of those things, emotions, illness, temperature, sleep, appetite, toileting, those are all internal signals that your child has to register. So if your child is having trouble with any of those signals that are commonly known to be a part of the interoception sense, many a times it's important that we also address the vestibular and proprioceptive senses as well, because working on those things, as well as like some tactile or touch input, as well as some cognition exercises or strategies, can help bring it all together and kind of help your child to understand and register those things a bit better. So now you know all about the 8 senses and especially about the 3 hidden senses. But guys, don't neglect the other 5 senses that we grew up learning and knowing about, because those also play a very big role in how our child learns about their environment, especially the tactile and the vision sense. Sometimes those can be widely overlooked, and those actually play another huge role in our child's development. Also, I just want to make sure that you guys download my free sensory red flag checklist in the description below, where you can go through and read various behaviors and see if any of those sound familiar to you. And if they do, are they really, really impacting your life or your child's life? And if they are, you want to definitely make sure you contact and reach out to an occupational therapist, your pediatrician, or your state's early intervention team for more help. Well, thank you guys for watching this video, and don't forget to check out video number 1, all about sensory processing disorder, and also subscribe and turn on your notification bell so you can continue to get these videos. I can't wait to see you and talk to you on the next one. Bye.